What it do, cuckolds? It's your boy, the Hater, up in this piece. And it's time for another Smackdown review and another episode of Hater Outdoors. That's right. So first, I'd like to begin with a shout out. One of my loyal fans was in attendance tonight in Sacramento. I would say who he is, but maybe he doesn't want you creeps to know. You know what I'm saying? So shout out to you. I hope you had a good time. I don't see how, but I hope you did anyways. Now let's get to the review of this relatively abysmal episode of, of Smackdown, right? So, first things first, the show opens up with what happened last week, all right? Obviously, what happened last week was more eventful than what's going to happen this week, so they have to do that, right? It is what it is. They showed like Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns basically agreeing to be in a tag team match against, I believe it's Solo and Jacob Fatu, but I don't know, to be honest. Whatever, right? Next up, we have Andrade versus LA Knight. You know, this is an Andrade match, so of course it's going to be at least decent. Andrade does his spots. He does like the Judas effect elbow thing that he does, which I think is pretty cool. He does that moonsault, and Michael Cole marks out like he's never seen it before. You know, it's a stupid move because the person should just roll the other way. You know what I mean? He can't change directions midair. He just keeps doing it. Just roll the other way. Haven't you learned yet? You know? But the match is pretty decent. There were a few botches, but it was pretty good, right? Like LA Knight does a very good top rope elbow. Andrade does his moves. He does the meteor out of the corner. The match ends with LA Knight botching a, the little jumping superplex thing that he does. He can't get on the ropes. He tries twice. He fails. But it happens. You know what I mean? But we're not going to excuse it. Just because the Hater likes the megastar doesn't mean that this is to be excused, right? This took away from the match. But they played it off as if it was on purpose, and maybe it was. I doubt it, because he tried twice. But they played it off, right? Like instead of superplexing Andrade and then hitting the BFT, he doesn't. Andrade just jumps, lands on his back because LA Knight dodges, and LA Knight hits the BFT and gets the 1, 2, 3. Now, the match was good, but nobody cares because everybody knows that Andrade is not going to beat LA Knight. You know what I mean? So based on that alone, it's like I was just waiting for the BFT. You know what I mean? Like, and this match and the segments that surround it took up the first hour of SmackDown, basically. So it's like, you know, we're just waiting an hour basically to see the BFT. You know, which is a cool move, but nevertheless, your boy has to point it out like it is, right? So that happened. Like I said, the match was decent, but you know, now we go to commercial break. When we come back from commercial break, Carmelo Hayes is just talking shit, right? And him and Andrade brawl. So this feud is mercifully not over. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't understand what more they want to extract from this, right? Just make them into a tag team already and move on. But whatever, you know? What can you do? Then we get one of the worst segments in the history of the world. Because Roman Reigns can't be bothered to show up to work, right? And because Cody Rhodes basically also didn't show up to work, they have like this meeting. It's very strange. And I think it was the Georgia Tech football field. I don't know why. I mean, I know why they told us, right? They told us because Roman Reigns went to school there. So what? You know, that's like saying Cody Rhodes once worked at this ice cream shop, so now they're gonna meet over ice cream and discuss things. That's nothing to do with anything. No, Cody's from Georgia. I don't care. It's fucking stupid, right? If you're gonna have this segment, and you're gonna tape it and make it all cinematic, which by the way is a horrible idea, right? Just do it in the ring. And then edit it later and make it cinematic. I don't know what to tell you. But it's better to have the fans see Roman Reigns, right? At least see his entrance or something, right? So they can say I saw Roman Reigns. Now they have to say Roman Reigns didn't show up because that's just what Roman Reigns does, right? Whatever. The segment was also bad for other reasons, right? It was bad because it didn't make any sense. These guys are supposed to be partners, and basically Cody Rhodes is talking down to Roman Reigns. Now, beyond talking down to Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes, who is the second guy to sign the contract, is asking Roman Reigns if he'll have his back, right? Well, Roman Reigns already signed the contract, so you're a tag team now. You know what I mean? Like, whether he's going to have your back or not, it's immaterial. You have a mutual goal, right? The goal is to beat the Bloodline. So you don't need to have this conversation at all. In addition, there were many other contradictions that are minimal but noteworthy, right, at the same time, somehow. So, for example, Roman Reigns explains to Cucky Rhodes, to Rhodey Chodes, he explains to him, he says, I have nothing to lose. You're the one who has something to lose. Well, first of all, the title's not on the line. So no, you both have the same thing to lose. Just one match, right? Because even if, like who cares, right? Let's consider it logically. if the Bloodline beats Cody and Roman Reigns, which obviously is not going to happen, if they do, so what, right? Even if they do, it's like, this might be a good opportunity to just let the Bloodline win, because it's like, it has no meaning whatsoever, right? Nothing happens. It's the same thing as next week. You know, the week before and after the pay-per-view, the same thing's going to happen on the next episode of SmackDown, whether or not Cody and Roman Reigns win or lose. So it doesn't really matter. It has no bearing on anything. Number one. Number two, Roman Reigns explains that Sol Sikoa took away from him Jimmy Uso, that he didn't care about at all, right? Paul Heyman, who was just a mouthpiece, and of course, obviously, we have to talk about the Ula Fala, right? He took away all these three things. One, his jobber of a cousin. Two, the overrated Paul Heyman, who can just come back, because he's been gone for like 3 months. He can just come back, motherfucks. Oh, they took away Paul Heyman. Why? Just call him and be like, hey, Paul, come back. You know what I mean? Like, nobody in the world would still be injured, like from that beatdown, even if it was a real beatdown, you know? So they didn't take away any of these people. You could just call up Jimmy Uso. You could just call up Roman Reigns. You could just call up fucking Jey Uso too if you want. You could call up Paul Heyman. You can have the original Bloodline back, right? But for some reason, we have to accept that, like, these people are out for good or something, you know? So when they make a return, it's more triumphant, even though there's no need for this. Then the Ula Fala, Roman Reigns basically said last week, he said, even if I don't have the Ula Fala, I'm still the tribal chief, right? So he pretty much said the Ula Fala is just a stupid-ass pepper necklace. So now he just backtracks on everything, right? And he says, I have nothing to lose. He doesn't point to the fact that Cody Rhodes took away from him the only thing that should matter, the WWE title. Cody Rhodes explains to Roman Reigns that he's a man, he's a leader without a tribe, and that and he's also not the champion, right? And it's like, why are you saying this to your partner, right? Why are you talking shit, you know? Then they have this moment where they're both trying to walk off the field, and Roman Reigns says, you're in my way. And Cody kind of backs down a little bit, right? To be respectful. And then Roman Reigns says, you're in my way in life, which is one of the worst lines of all time. This should be a meme. You're in my way in life. It's like, first of all, this just doesn't feel like Roman Reigns. This feels like a cuck, you know? Roman Reigns of old would have just laid this jobber out, you know what I mean? But whatever, that's what happened, you know? The hater cannot change what happened. That's just what happened. The segment, in my opinion, was complete garbage. Then, immediately after this, we have Byron Saxton, who somehow still has a job, going to Kevin Owens, who's watching the what's it called? The segment, I guess we'll call it, backstage. And he's like, Kevin, the fans are wondering, what were you thinking? First of all, nobody's wondering that. Nobody gives a flying fuck what Kevin Owens thinks, right? You can't just gaslight the entire WWE fan base into believing that what Kevin Owens thinks is important. Obviously, the way the storyline is going to resolve itself is Kevin Owens is going to say, how could you align yourself with Roman Reigns? He made our life a living hell for like 3 years, which is honestly a justifiable response, right? But he doesn't say anything. He just scoffs and walks away. Okay, fine. You know, that happens. Then we have Giovanni Vinci versus Apollo Crews, which is a very, very quick match, right? Apollo Crews wins again with a roll-up. Giovanni Vinci, who just looks like a complete jobber, he just looks like he sucks. You know, yeah, I know he's an athletic guy, but he just looks like he sucks, right? And here's how you know. Like, Corey Graves has to, like, explain to you why Giovanni Vinci is good, right? Every time someone has to explain to you why someone is good or why they're even there, it means they're not good, right? And furthermore, when you use ephemeral characteristics that have nothing to do with the wrestler at all, right? Like, you just attribute things to people that aren't true, right? So he's like, Giovanni Vinci believes that he's the smartest person on the roster. So what? You know what I'm saying? So what if he believes that? Like, he presented that, Corey Graves presented that as an attribute, right? He didn't even say he is the smartest. He said he believes he's the smartest. So what? Who cares? This isn't a fucking, like, quiz show. It's wrestling, right? You don't have to be smart to be a good wrestler. Otherwise, why the hell is Jacob Fatu even there? He's presented like a retard, right? Oh, I should note, I forgot about this segment. There's a part where for some reason, when the Bloodline comes into the arena, they go through metal detectors. The two idiots of the Bloodline, the two jobbers who have no purpose at all having WWE jobs, as I'll talk about later, these two guys walk through the metal detector while holding their belts. And then the guy's like, I have to pat you down. Why do you even have the metal detector? He's walking in with a belt, which has metal on it, right? So it's really, really stupid. Then Jacob Fatu walks through, and then like the security guy is like, I need to pat you down. And Jacob Fatu proceeds to introduce him and the rest of the security guards to the Samoan moveset. He headbutts him and super kicks them. Then he says, who wants a pat down now? Now I couldn't help but think, and this is going to be a slight tangent, I couldn't help but think that the security guard, the main one, that confronts Jacob Fatu was the same size as Jacob Fatu. So when people say, oh, why does size matter? This is why size matters. Because you can't hire a security guard that's the size of Rockstar Spud, because real security guards are much bigger, right? And you can't hire a guy who's regular sized, right? Because your wrestlers are regular sized. Let me tell you a little wisdom, motherfucks. In any kind of fight scenario, two people are almost always gonna beat one person, right? If you have two guys, let's say, fighting one guy who's stronger than them, they're gonna win because of the numbers advantage. This is how the real world works. The real world is not Karate Kid. It's not a Van Damme movie, right? The real world, two almost always beats one. But there are exceptions, right? There are exceptions when if you have someone like The Big Show, someone like Lashley, someone like Brock Lesnar, even someone like Randy Orton, he can feasibly beat up two regular guys. Jacob Fatu cannot feasibly beat up two regular guys, let alone three. So it's just stupid, right? It just comes off as very dumb and not well thought out. Now, if someone was at least believable, like chances are, for example, that Randy Orton cannot beat up two regular guys. But at the very least, you can suspend your disbelief and say, yeah, but look at him, he's Randy Orton. Oh, yeah, but look at him, he's Lashley. Oh, yeah, but look at him, Big Show is 7 foot tall, 500 pounds. But, oh, Mark Henry's the strongest man in the world. Chances are, two regular guys can beat up Mark Henry, right? But it'd be close, right? You wouldn't be surprised if Mark Henry came out and won and knocked them both out because he's the world's strongest man. If Jacob Fatu beat up two guys, it would be like a very, very impressive feat. But this wasn't presented as an impressive feat. This was presented as if Jacob Fatu is Matt Morgan, right? As if he's Ryback. Remember when Ryback would bully security people? Those security people were smaller than the current security people, and Ryback was 100 times bigger and stronger than Jacob Fatu. So the amount of disbelief is preposterous. At the very least, have the two other jobbers participate in the beating. Like Camacho is bigger. He's bigger than Jacob Fatu, who's just a regular guy. Like I've never seen someone so regular be presented as more of a threat than he actually is, since Umaga. But then you realize, oh shit, Umaga's like 6'4", at least. He's at least 6'4" and 350 pounds. He also isn't believable. Two regular guys would beat up Umaga because Umaga is a fat bastard. Rest in peace, but we're gonna say it like it is. You know what I mean? So this idea that one wrestler can beat up multiple wrestlers only works under two circumstances, or both of them at the same time, right? Both circumstances, I mean, operating at the same time. One, the wrestler is fundamentally bigger and stronger than the people that he's beating up, right? Or two, the wrestler is so big, right, that the other guys, even if they're not small, even if the security guards aren't small, right, at least it's believable because it's like, oh shit, yeah, it's Big Show. You know, it's gonna be hard to beat him up, right? But if you had like, remember when TNA, during like Immortal, there was like the security tag team of Gunner and Murphy, right? Like Murphy was the bigger one, but Gunner himself like would beat up Jacob Fatu in like 20 seconds. You know what I mean? Gunner was also Jackson Riker in WWE, right? He would murder him, you know what I mean? So it's like, that's the kind of security guard that we're used to. And now we get these security guards that are not as big and strong as Gunner, but they're still regular sized dudes. And they're like, oh my God, Jacob Fatu is destroying all of them with super kicks and headbutts. And the beatdown in and of itself also just wasn't good, right? It wasn't a good beatdown. He did the Samoan moveset. Anyways, I digress. After the very quick Apollo Crews and Giovanni Vinci match, we have another segment that's a rehash. Byron Saxton is once again asking Kevin Owens, right? It's very strange. It's like you just asked him and he walked away, but he asks him again. Michael Cole says Byron Saxton is a pest. Then Kevin Owens says, if I'm going to say it, I'm going to go to the ring. Great. That's what everyone wants. To waste their hard-earned money to hear how Kevin Owens feels about a shitty vignette that they played earlier in the night. Nobody cares. Go on Twitter and say it after the show so people, when they're driving home, they can be like, oh shit, that's what Kevin Owens thinks. In kayfabe, it makes no sense. He goes out there and he's interrupted by the Bloodline, minus Solo Sikoa, who didn't show up to work, right? For some reason, someone out there, like, this is how bad things are, right? Camacho is like basically completely useless. Camacho is in the running with Brock Anderson as the worst wrestler of all time. Like, he's there, motherfucks. He's there. He has no good qualities whatsoever. He's not big enough. He's not good looking enough. He's not strong enough. He has zero charisma, right? He's not good in the ring. I mean, like, the first three attributes, like, he's not an ugly guy. He's not a small guy, but he's not special in any one of those departments, right? So he's not going to get the mic because this guy can't cut a promo. The only promo I remember Camacho cutting was when he was playing the role of Camacho, and Unico said something to him in Spanish, and Camacho said, I don't know ese vato, right? That's what he said, right? Because he was playing the role of like a Mexican, I guess. Whatever. Obviously, Jacob Fatu, even if he can cut a promo, he cannot because now he's presented as a retard, right? So the burden falls on the third guy, right? Tama Tonga. Tama Tonga comes out and he makes this weird noise that I forgot. He's like, he just does that for like 10, 15 seconds. And I'm like, what the fuck am I watching here? He's also like moving weird, but not in an intimidating way, but in a retarded way. And like, why are you doing this type of way, right? Then it seems like he might be having a stuttering gimmick because he has an issue getting out one of the words. So he stutters, right? But he doesn't play it off well at all, right? Kevin Owens luckily picks up on this and he says, nobody ever wants to hear you speak again and nobody ever wanted to hear you speak, right? Which is a complete burial and enough reason, in my opinion, to never give the mic to this guy again. This guy is garbage, right? He also has no redeemable qualities. He's got a really good physique. He's got like an 8-pack, you know? I got to give him props for that because that takes a lot of hard work. But beyond that, this guy, I mean, he's a good hand, right? He's like, but you have like, you know, like you have like Montez Ford, for example, who's better than this guy in every category. So it's like, why does this guy have a job? But neither here nor there. Then Kevin Owens cuts a very short Kevin Owens promo of like, I know what you guys are going to do. This is a very common Kevin Owens promo, if you think about it, right? Kevin Owens often cuts this promo where he's like, I know how things go, just do it quick, right? It's like, yes, we all know how things go, but the whole point of kayfabe is that you don't, you know, do that, right? Now, again, I should note, Kevin Owens, he had a good night tonight, but there was a lot of negatives, right? The good night stuff came during the match where he did a lot of cool moves. But this Kevin Owens is not the Kevin Owens that debuted in WWE who was here to bring about change. This is now the Kevin Owens that is exactly like every other failed WWE wrestler, right? So he sucks. Anyways, they start beating his ass. DIY comes out. Nick Aldis with security come out. And they make a 6-man tag match. Not next, but later in the night. Whatever. Long segment. Boring segment, shitty promo segment, so we move on with our lives, right? Very, very bad. I didn't like it. Then we got Bayley and Naomi versus Tiffany Stratton and Nia Jax in a tornado tag team match. All you need to know about this match, and it was a pretty clever finish. Basically, both Bayley and Naomi pin Nia Jax at the same time to justify the triple threat that's coming our way, right? I should also point out that Naomi's new entrance theme is preceded by the spelling of her name. I made a video about this a few months ago, I think. It was definitely a few months ago, where I said that like the themes are so bad that the only way you're gonna know that it's Naomi and not fucking somebody else is if they tell you before the song starts that it's Naomi, right? They'll either be like, it's Naomi, or they'll spell out the name, or they'll say the catchphrase of that person, right? It's Tiffy time, right? It's like, oh, is it? Oh, because I wouldn't have known based on the music by itself, right? All the iconic theme songs from the past didn't need to tell you this, right? Batista was just Batista. You know, when Batista came out, Michael Cole wouldn't say, oh, Batista walks alone. That wasn't part of his presentation. It was just his theme song, right? When CM Punk had like this fire burns, nobody said, oh, CM Punk's fire burns. And if they did, that would have been a bad call. This all started with like Randy Orton, where like Randy Orton would like go crazy in the ring and Michael Cole would be like, he hears voices, John, he hears voices, Randy Orton hears voices. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? You know, like the theme song doesn't have to necessarily match the wrestler. As a matter of fact, the more distance between wrestler and theme song, the better it is. Because the whole point of a theme song is that you associate it with a wrestler thematically. That's why it's called the theme song. It's not just some generic rock music that before it starts, or EDM music, or whatever the fuck Naomi's music is, that before it starts, you just hear Naomi, and that's like, da-da-da-da-da-da-da, right? This is just bad, right? And then also, I should point out right now that there's a lot of other bad things that happened, or actually say that didn't happen, right? So a few weeks ago, we had a segment of like Legado del Fantasma, I almost said the LWO, Legado del Fantasma having tequila in the back and saying it's their time. And then we haven't heard back from them since. So, you know, nobody gives a flying fuck. Not that we thought anything was going to come of that, but it didn't, right? I did like the finish. The double pin was innovative. It was a mix of like a crucifix and like almost like a victory roll. It was really interesting. But whatever, right? Now, we don't know who wins. I guess they both win, so they're going to get their moment, right? So, okay. He's going to have another number one, yeah, that's right, I missed this part. Luckily, I put the notes down here. He's going to have a number one contender match between them for next week. I bet you it ends in some sort of draw or screwy finish. Then Owens comes out, but lo and behold, DIY is getting their asses whooped by the Bloodline backstage. Then, as a result, the Street Profits are now Kevin Owens' team. Now, I will say this. The main event match, which ended up being Cucky Owens and the Street Cucks versus the Cuck Line, right? The main event was pretty decent for what it was. However, like every other main event in recent memory and every other match in recent memory, it has significant flaws. Now, I will talk about the good things first. Kevin Owens did a lot of his cool spots. He did a frog splash off the apron. He did a swanton. He did some other bullshit. He did the stunner eventually. He did the little superplex counter thing that he does, which is probably one of his best moves. He did a lot of cool things. Montez Ford, this guy was starting to win me over. Except here's what happened. Montez Ford had a good match, and then there's a point where the match basically gets thrown out like with a DQ because Camacho continuously breaks up the pin. Well, this is allowed in every tag team match ever, but for some reason this was enough. Camacho breaking up the pin twice was not allowed, but you know, every time it happens in every other match, including this one, it's not a problem. There was also a point where Jacob Fatu broke up one of the pins, and Michael Cole started sucking his balls because Michael Cole was like, oh, Jacob Fatu breaking up the pin really changed the course of this match. Yeah, that's the whole point of breaking up a pin. But it's like, because Jacob Fatu does nothing impressive, they have him do remedial shit, and they tell you it's impressive. Right? They're like, oh, he changed the momentum of the match. Yeah, literally every pinfall break does that. In the history of pinfall breaks, all of them. There's not one pinfall break that didn't accomplish that feat. But when Jacob Fatu does it, it's like this masterful like assistance. You know what I mean? Long story short, the match was good because of Kevin Owens and because of Montez Ford. But there's a part right after the disqualification where Montez Ford like gets all hyped and he climbs up on the announce table and the fans go wild, right? This was cool. This felt like an off-the-cuff moment. And it's these things that people like Montez Ford, mid-card jobbers, can use to elevate themselves. But then here's where it all went away. And you can go and rewind it and watch this because this definitely happened exactly how I'm going to say. Montez Ford then jumps off the table. He was just hyping up the crowd. He was perfectly fine. He hops off the table, and all of a sudden he's dizzy. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life, and this is why he'll never be a star. He hops off the table, and he's like, oh, where am I? He's like acting retarded, which allows Jacob Fatu to just plow into him. And this turns the whole momentum of the beatdown, right, into the favor of the Bloodline, who start beating up all the good guys, right? They tease the powerbomb through the table on Kevin Owens several times, but they can't do it. So instead, Jacob Fatu does the one impressive thing that he does, and that is administer the Samoan moveset on everybody. So everything that Jacob Fatu did can be summarized in the following moves. Headbutt, super kick, top rope splash, and maybe he did an ass to mouth. Because I was smoking a cigarette outside, and I didn't really pay attention to the match that much. Maybe he did the ass to mouth, like, you know, the ooze, like that, you know, that move, right? Then, eventually, DIY comes out all hobbled, right? They're not carrying any weapons. Keep this in mind, right? They come out for no reason, they get their asses beat, right? Then Cucky Rhodes' music hits, right? Oh, it turns out he was there all along. But because he's Cucky Rhodes, he's not gonna show up and do anything. He comes in, he beats the two jobbers with a chair. The entire format of every Bloodline match is that the Tongans, right, the tag team champions, are basically the new Usos, right? They don't contribute anything, right? They're just there to get their asses beat, and then Solo Sikoa would come out and you know, attack Cody Rhodes with the Samoan Spike or something, and Roman Reigns would win the match, right? They're just there as fodder. So they do their fodder job, and then Cucky Rhodes goes in the ring with a chair, right? This is why I pointed out that DIY didn't bring any weapons. Why didn't they, right? Why does Cucky Rhodes bring out a weapon? He's smart enough to do that, but these two idiots don't. Then Jacob Fatu super kicks the chair out of Cucky Rhodes' hand. Then Jacob Fatu tries to do a clothesline, but as we all know, the clothesline is not part of the Samoan moveset, so he fails. Cucky Rhodes hits the Cody Cutter, right? And then Jacob Fatu rolls out. Then they tease a moment where Kevin Owens might or might not hit Cucky Rhodes with a chair. I was pretty sure he wouldn't, but this is just, you know, a prelude to the inevitable moment where he will do exactly that, right? So the fact that you're postponing it doesn't change anything, right? Just like, for example, there's going to come a point where Giovanni Vinci gets a win, right? Just because you're having him job out to Apollo Crews a few times doesn't make this boring jobber any more interesting, you know? So there you have it. That has been your SmackDown review. In my personal opinion, it was not a good episode at all. The reasons are primarily Randy Orton, who's a star, wasn't there. Roman Reigns, who's a star, wasn't there. Solo Sikoa, who obviously is not a star, but whom they are presenting as a significant member of SmackDown and as a main eventer, because he's going to be in the main event, was not there, right? The only person that's on the main event of SmackDown that was there and wrestled was Jacob Fatu, who's had like one match so far, right? Cody Rhodes technically was there, but he didn't do anything, right? He was so not there that I thought he wasn't there the whole time until the end when he came out, right? And nothing changed. You could have just had Randy Orton come out. I thought that Cody would have come out, started getting his ass beat, and maybe Roman Reigns would come out. But no, then I realized, wait a second, this is Roman Reigns we're talking about. You know what I mean? He's not going to be there. Like, you know what I mean? If Solo Sikoa is not there, Roman Reigns is definitely not there, you know? So there you have it. That's kind of been the way that the match, the pairings have ended up being, right? So it's like Cody Rhodes' primary antagonist now is Jacob Fatu, and Solo Sikoa and Roman Reigns are each other's antagonists, right? So don't be surprised if at the next pay-per-view we have a throwaway, not this one, but the one after that. Unless the one after that is Survivor Series, then everything I'm saying doesn't count. But don't be surprised if we have a title match, Cody Rhodes versus like Jacob Fatu, because this is where this shit's headed. You know what I mean? None of this stuff matters at the end of the day. All of this is just a waste of time until we can get The Rock back. He's gonna come and save wrestling once again. But now it's like everyone that was there last year is now in a worse position, except for Solo Sikoa. But Solo Sikoa doesn't count because he was a lackey last year. So, everybody who's a lackey can be in a better position, and it might mean nothing, right? Solo Sikoa, even though he's the leader of the Bloodline, like he has had 0 meaningful wins this entire year. Well, I guess there was that one time he pinned Cody Rhodes in a multi-man tag match, but nobody cares about that. So anyways, there you have it, Cucks. That's been your SmackDown review. I'm going to upload this as soon as I can. So hopefully, you people can hear it quick. And maybe my fan that went to Sacramento can hear it on his drive back if he's got a long drive. That'd be pretty cool. So there you have it, Cucks. Take care of yourselves and each other up in this piece.